How's it going, Real Dealers? It is your man, Philip Hall, and welcome to another episode of the Real Deal Bros podcast. And today I have a very, very special guest with me. So if you guys know me, you probably know that I'm a huge country music fan. And I have an up-and-coming country music artist with me on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Kären McCormick.
Thank you for having me.
So Kären, she's been in the country music for about, what's it been, like 2 years now, 3 years? Or
Yeah, I moved to Nashville in 2018, so 2 years, exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, and also I just also want to let you guys know that Kären just released a new song, a new single. It's called Retro. You guys could go find it on Spotify and also Apple Music. So yeah, definitely make sure to go check out her new song and show her some support on that end. But Kären, I just wanted to bring you on and just kind of give people my enthusiasm for country music, and also knowing you and knowing that you're an upcoming star as well. I just want let people know that there are some people in country music that are trying to come up right now. And we can just get into the interview a bit. So Kären, so what is your background in country music? Like, how did it all start, and where are you from? Like how your family, like your hometown, everything.
Sure. So I was born in Brazzaville, Congo, and then I grew up in Washington State. So I lived there most of my life. So I definitely consider Washington to be home. And then I moved to Nashville in 2018. But I really started falling in love with country music when I was 11 years old. I remember my mom had a Faith Hill CD and she had a Brooks and Dunn CD, and my dad would listen to country music, and I just really fell in love with the songwriting, and I loved to write and I loved to sing, and I had never really thought about putting those two things together. And then I started to beg my dad for a guitar, and I said, if you get me a guitar, then I'll be able to write these songs that I have, floating around in my brain. And it took a year to convince him, and I finally got a guitar, and I wrote my first song the same day that I got it. And then I started begging, can we go to Nashville? Can we go to Nashville? That's where country music, lives and breathes. And so he finally took me to Nashville when I was 16, and I just knew that I was going to end up here someday, and that ended up happening 2 years ago.
I got a question. That guitar that your dad gave you, is it one of those guitars hanging up in the back?
Oh, no, it's not. That guitar is at my dad's house. I have a mandolin and a ukulele on this side, and I have my guitars on the other side.
Oh, awesome. That's pretty cool. And what part of Washington are you actually from?
Yeah, I grew up on the eastern side of Washington, so Spokane area, which is pretty close to Idaho.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, my dad is actually from Seattle, so.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. I've been up there a few times. It's pretty cool up there. Yeah. It's interesting. Like you were born in the Congo. That's a bit far out. Like how that happened. Like, were your parents living there at some point, or were you born in the Congo?
Yeah, so my mom is from there as well. My dad was in the Peace Corps, and he went over there and he was doing some work for the Peace Corps and things like that. And then my parents met, and they fell in love, and the rest is history.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So, bro, I want to go into your new song, Retro. So, I listened to it. A great song, by the way. I thought you did an amazing job on it. And so what was the purpose behind you writing the song? Like, what inspired you to do it, or how did you come up with the lyrics when you're just making the song?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for listening to it. I wrote this one back in November 2018, and it was one of my first couple co-writes here in Nashville. Because prior to moving to Nashville, I really had only written songs by myself. So I was still kind of finding the groove for co-writing, and I wrote it with Dana Marie Rogers and Taylor Hughes, and the write started out with just me and Dana, and I had another write scheduled later in the same day with Taylor. And so Dana and I had never written before. It was our first co-write, and we were kind of bouncing off ideas, and since she's become a very consistent co-writer of mine, and she always starts out with, what are you in the mood to write today? Like upbeat, happy, sad, ballad type of thing. And I said, well, I'm really in the mood to write something upbeat and happy, and just something that makes you feel good, and something that people want to sing along to. And she was going through her notes and she was like, I have a couple song title ideas that I kind of want to bounce off of you. I have this title called Retro, and I just loved it. There was something about, as soon as she said it, it just made me feel something. And I was like, yeah, let's go bounce off of that. And we just knew that we wanted it to be something kind of, reminiscent and nostalgic, but upbeat at the same time, and something that just kind of makes you think about simple things. And so that's how the whole story came together.
So it sounded like it was a collaborative project then.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. Yeah, because yeah, like as I was listening to it, I was thinking, when I read the title retro, I would figure like it would be kind of like an old school country type thing, but it seems like you add in a lot of, kind of like an old school feel, but with a new school feel. Because when I listen to a lot like artists today, I know artists are trying to sound more hip, like add snaps into their music and, kind of at like a more upbeat tempo. And I feel like that's becoming a more that's the direction that a lot of music is starting to go into nowadays. And yeah, because a lot of old school country is a little bit slower and kind of medium pace, but then now it's starting to get more fast paced. And yeah, I like to see that you're very diverse and trying to set up the tempos for your music.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah. So I know like you probably worked with a lot of other songwriters like ever since moving to Nashville. So what is one of your favorite songs that you've written or have done a cover for?
Oh, a cover for. Um, well, Casey Musgraves is one of my favorite songwriters and artists. And she has this song on her new album, Golden Hour, called Butterflies, that I just love. I've been a long time Casey Musgraves fan, and she's kind of notorious for not really writing as many love songs. And Golden Hour, I think, was kind of that moment where she was talking about love in a different perspective. And I just really love the lyrics of Butterflies, and I love the tempo of it. I love the feel. So I really like to cover that one.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite songs too. Like I have a whole Spotify playlist dedicated to country music, and yeah, I have the Golden Hour on there.
It's a great album.
It is pretty good. Like yeah, Casey Musgraves, she does a really good job at writing her music, and yeah, just like I really like her style. It's kind of mellow, and I actually when I was looking at your website, I saw that you had some comparisons with Taylor Swift and Casey Musgraves as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because Taylor is definitely the comparison that I get the most. And I think that more so comes from just the autobiographical songwriting that I like to do. And, it's so interesting because I do feel like after Taylor Swift really exploded, it kind of felt like for a while there, any female in country music that wrote songs was compared to Taylor Swift. And now that, I think a lot of women in country have really found their own sound and really honed that in. Those comparisons have kind of died down a little bit, but it makes a lot of sense. Taylor really influenced my songwriting growing up, and I listened to her constantly as well as Casey, so it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, they're both like amazing artists, and yeah, I know there's a lot of other up and coming artists that say, oh yeah, like I grew up on this artist, or yeah, like Taylor Swift, she's one of my inspirations, and yeah, it's kind of really cool how artists now are starting to use because like even though like some of the artists that you hear now, they're not as old as you might think because like you're like right in that stage with Taylor Swift and Casey Musgraves, like you're in kind of like I would say you're in their generation. So yeah, it's with you coming up, I think that's good that you're like comparing yourself, or people are comparing you to those artists that aren't really that far gone. So, yeah. So knowing that you grew up in the household listening to country music, both your mom and pops, they grew you up on or brought you up on country music. So who were your music inspirations growing up?
I would say Shania Twain was definitely a big one. Faith Hill was a big one, especially early on when I first really fell in love with country. I mean, they were still having these massive, massive careers. And I really loved them. I also really loved Kelly Clarkson. I also listened to pop music all the time as
Mm-hmm.
well. And Kelly Clarkson was a big one. Demi Lovato was a big one. And I think that for me, pop was kind of like an escape, to just kind of like have fun and let loose and just like, hang out. And country was really where I felt like heard. And that's what I loved
Mm-hmm.
about country music because of the songwriting and because of the lyricism. And so that's why I love both of those genres.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I know there's some artists now that are starting to get inspiration from, whether it's rap, whether it's rock and roll or pop music. They're starting to integrate some of that into, country music. And I mean, you look at artists like Breland or Lil Nas X, there's some artists that are mixing in their like their genre of music in with the country scene. And just having that collaboration, or just like how we're in that stage where we could collaborate different types of genres together, that's really that's the product that people are wanting to hear as well. And I think that's really
I
cool.
agree.
Hmm. Yeah. So I kind of say this a lot, but and I also see it too. I say that Hollywood is where they make movie stars, and Nashville is where they make country stars. So, what is the country music scene like in Nashville, and how has anything changed ever since you moved there?
I don't think that I've been here long enough to see too much change, to be completely honest. I definitely think that Nashville as a whole has changed quite a bit since I first visited. It's a lot more people. It's definitely a more, hustle and bustle type of town just because you have people constantly moving here, and things like that. But Nashville, I think if you ever watched the TV show Nashville on CMT or on ABC when it was on,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it is pretty similar. I mean, you do see people walking around with their guitar cases, just trying to play a song for somebody and hoping that the right person will listen. And you can walk into any bar and find, well, pre-COVID, of course,
Mm-hmm.
find anybody singing and writing and things like that. So I do think that a lot of it is very much what people who don't live here envision it to be. Um, it's very it's very fun. It's very, I guess the way that I look at it, I've never lived in LA and I've never lived in New York, but from what I've heard in terms of comparisons, I think that Nashville is a place where if you do have a really big dream, it doesn't feel so out of reach because everybody really supports it and understands
Mm.
it and gets it and is in your corner.
I guess like that kind of adds to the Southern hospitality, really, because I think like one thing, if you compare those two cities that you brought up, like LA and New York, like I go to college in New York, so and I don't know that many people that work in entertainment specifically in New York, but my sister, she does stage acting and she lives in Chicago, and I feel like a lot of those towns are starting to become a lot more saturated as far as just the entertainment industry or music industry or like whatever. But I feel like Nashville at times does get overlooked as far as the music industry, as like maybe people, when people see Nashville, like in the South, and like, oh, maybe it's not like a very big place or a place where I could make a name for myself. And that's why people go west or people go east. And yeah, I feel like Nashville is starting to become more of that city that's starting to get seen in the public eye as far as the music industry. Even though like it has been historically country specific, I still feel like it's a city that could make waves in the music industry as a whole.
I agree. I mean, I think that when I first moved here, I thought it was kind of only going to be country artists or country songwriters that I would meet, but there is quite a large pop scene as well. So I
Mm.
wouldn't be surprised if it starts to then diversify even more to other genres.
Yeah. So even though like during COVID, you probably haven't really been spending that much time in the studio, I assume. So like what's a day in the life like for a singer slash songwriter?
Sure. So typically my day, it can kind of look a little bit different, especially with COVID. But if I have a write that day, it's typically in the morning or early afternoon. I live about 30 minutes outside of Nashville, so I take the drive in, and depending on if we're writing at the house or writing at like a writer's room, like at BMI or ASCAP, it's typically about a 4 to 5 hour process to write. It kind of just depends on circumstances of, have you written with this person before? Are you writing with one or two people? Things like that. Are you writing to a track? But it pretty much for me, I kind of plan that I anticipate it'll be a whole day thing. Think of it as an 8-hour work day. You just kind of, you're working. So you kind of just expect that it's going to be a whole day thing. And so that's kind of more on the creative end of things. And then if it's more of like a business day type of thing, it'll look like, waking up and taking a phone call or 3 phone calls, doing emails, talking with different people, trying to find new songwriters that maybe I haven't written with before, things like that. A lot of just like admin, boring stuff.
Yeah, what about like when you guys are recording, like how has that been? Or do you have like a recording studio set up at home, or do you still have to go to the studio to do that?
I don't have a studio at my place. I am not currently in the process of recording because I have projects that are finished. So I'm really looking to record next year. But typically the way that works is I will work on the demo, send the demo to the producer. The producer will get back to me with a track. It's typically about like a 1 to 2 week turnaround time. And then I'll go into the studio and like spend the entire day just doing vocals and things like that.
Right. How long would you say that you would be willing to work on a song? Like, what's your timeline, or what's your duration for how long you want to work?
In terms of once it's already finished being written?
Yeah. It'd be like the process of starting it and then ending it. Like, what's the timeline and duration for that? Like, on average, how long do you take to record a song or write one?
So writing is typically a same day process, and recording is typically a same day process. It really just kind of depends on like what the year looks like in terms of when it will be released and when it will be recorded. So for instance, Retro, we finished last June. So I've had it for a year. But remember that we wrote it in November and I didn't record it until May, and then it was done in June and everything. So it just kind of like will be a process of getting as many songs as possible to kind of have in your catalog. And then when I'm ready to go to release something or go to make a project, it's kind of like, okay, which songs do we want to move forward with? And then kind of work from there.
Awesome. So as far as you like making a name for yourself, like which artists have you collabed with before or would like to collab with in the future?
Yeah, I've performed with Walker Hayes a couple times, and that was a really great experience. And I love him and I love his music, and I would love to do something with him. Casey is definitely like a dream collaboration. I think I would probably be a little too starstruck to handle it, but that would be really fun too. Those are definitely two that I would love to do something with someday.
Have you ever like ran into any big name artists like Darius Rucker, Luke Bryan, Jimmy Allen, like Kane Brown? Any of like have you ever ran into them?
Yes, I have. I actually interned at Warner Music Nashville and CMA, so there were a couple instances where I ran into a couple of those people.
Like, have you ever like took any notes from them, or have they ever given you any advice on how to make it in the industry, or?
It's really just about perseverance. It's just about keep going, keep writing. I think a lot of times what a lot of people say is like it really can just take one song sometimes to kind of break through to people. So.
It's I know country music is starting to become a little bit more diverse, like currently. And there's a lot of artists of color that are starting to come up. Jimmy Allen, Kane Brown, Darius Rucker, Mickey Guyton. Tierra. Yeah, there's like artists of color starting to become more popularized in the industry. So, like for you, how has being a Black woman in country music impacted you and your fans?
I don't think that it's something that impacts me on a day-to-day basis in terms of it being something that fully defines me. Just like being an artist is not the only thing that defines me, but I definitely do think that the tides are changing and the tides are turning in a positive way. Because I do remember growing up and kind of dealing with some microaggressions of people being surprised that I sing country music or surprised that I would listen to country music. And I'm sure that maybe you've dealt with some of that too. And it's kind of like, oh, really? You do? And, you're kind of like, yeah, wait a second. Like, am I not supposed to, and things like that. And, starting to recognize like, it's not on me that they think that. It's kind of something that they, as a whole, the country music genre needs more diversity so that conversations like that don't happen because it'll be so normalized,
Right. Yeah, like you're definitely right. I have, faced some experience where people would get surprised I listen to country music. I mean, like I'll tell you a story. So I remember one day in class, back in high school, like whenever our teacher gave us an assignment, she would put on some background music, and, and she would ask the students like, "Oh, do you guys have any recommendations?" And is it like, "Oh yeah, I recommend like Drake," or "Oh, can you play some like Justin Bieber, or Billie Eilish, or anything like that?" And I was always the one kid saying like, "Hey, do you think you could pawn some like Tim McGraw or Darius Rucker or Florida Georgia Line?" And I would get funny looks from from my classmates, and I would tell like people like, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely into country music, and yeah, I love it. Like it's amazing." And even though people are starting to figure out that I am like more of a country music, because I've listened to country music since I was like, first experience with country music was like when I was 9. I usually, because I would go on long car trips with my dad, and whenever we went on to like the outskirts of the city, like the only stations on the radio that would be playing in the car or that were available in the car that didn't have static would be country music stations. And I just learned it from going on long car trips, and I loved it ever since. And people still would get surprised when I would go to New York, like when I started college, and I'd express my love for country music there. I would still get those funny looks, and in my mind, I'm thinking, well, yeah, those people are probably thinking, well, how does a black kid from Oakland, California, fall in love with country music? And it's like I didn't really care that much that people were surprised I like country music, because it's not really so much about how others think. It's really so much about how and how you feel about it. So yeah, I definitely do relate with you on how you probably had that experience growing up as well. And yeah, it's just for the love of it. It's not to make a statement or anything. It's for the love of it. Yeah. But so outside of music, do you have like any passions or hobbies or anything like that?
I like to bake. I'm not very good at it, but I do enjoy doing it. I'm trying to get better at it. I was hoping that during quarantine it was something that I would get better at, but I'm clearly not practicing enough because I haven't gotten any better at it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, bake. Yeah, because I remember I looked at your Instagram story and I saw that you baked some cookies to celebrate your debut of Retro.
Yes, they were really good. I don't typically make cookies. I usually am like cupcakes or cakes or things like that. But I was like, let me challenge myself. Because it's so weird releasing music during quarantine. This was the first release that I had, during this pandemic and everything. And I was kind of like, how do we at least make it a little bit of a celebration? And so I just went on Instagram and Facebook Live and just, played the song acoustically and just chatted with people, and it was fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Like besides cooking, I see it. You go outside a lot. Like, are you like an outdoor person? Like, do you like hiking or something like that?
I do. I do like to go on walks and go on hikes. Growing up in Washington State, it's a beautiful place to live, and so that really made me appreciate the outdoors.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. All right, so even though there's nobody's really touring right now because of COVID, um, but as far as when you start touring again, well, whenever that may be, like, what are your favorite places to go to when you're on tour, or what places would you want to go to when you start touring again?
Man, that just feels like so far off. I don't even know
I
where to
know,
start.
we're probably not thinking about traveling anytime soon, but yeah.
Um, I do love playing in Washington. You know, it's the home state, so that will always be a special place for me to play. But I would love to play in California. Um,
Hmm.
I love California is just so beautiful. I would love to do a show there, and
Come to Oak,
Texas as well.
come to Oakland, do a show, like perform at the Paramount. That'll be awesome.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so I think well, we actually went pretty fast. I expected it to be an hour, but yeah, we went pretty fast with this one. So like, what does I guess my closing question would be like, what does the future hold for Kären McCormick? Like, what are your plans as a country artist goes?
Well, I'm releasing an EP in September, which I'm really, really excited about, and just gonna enjoy that moment because that's something that I've been working towards for a long time. And then start writing again for the next project, and probably won't record and everything like that until next year. And then depending on what the world looks like, you know, after that, hopefully we'll be like playing shows and, you know, kind of finding a little bit of normalcy. But really, the future just looks like a lot of writing and a lot of working on finding what my sound is in country music and really finding my voice in country music. Because something that I do love about country, especially with the women in country, is none of them sound the same. You know, Casey sounds
Hmm.
nothing like Carrie, and Carrie sounds nothing like Mickey. And I think that that's really important, and that's why so many of them have big moments when they do really break, you know, and they have those crossover abilities. And so I really just want to focus in on that. So that way, if you do hear a song from me, you can say, oh, I know that's Kären, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so like you're saying that you want like in the future you would hope that people that listen to you they recognize you instantly because you have a different style just like how a lot of other artists sound different.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But so like are you signed to like a label or anything right now, or like are you like working as an independent artist?
All independent.
Oh, independent. Okay, cool. Like is there like any particular labels that what you would want to go to, or is there any labels looking at you right now? Um,
I don't know enough about each label to kind of say who I would want to be signed with, but that is a goal of mine in the future.
Hmm. Is there like for country artists, like is there like a huge rush for them to be signed, or are there a lot of artists out there right now that are fine with just being independent, or just want to be independent for as long as they do music? Is there like a huge rush for it?
I think it just kind of depends on artist to artist. I think in general, country music is not somewhere where you see somebody kind of getting signed within the first couple years as often as you do in other genres. You know, I think with pop especially, you can kind of take somebody from YouTube and like instantly sign them, or take them from TikTok and instantly sign them. I think country is definitely more in the long game. So it does take a little bit longer. But as far as whether or not artists want to stay independent, I think kind of just depends on the artists themselves.
Hmm. Yeah, I see. Yeah. I feel like in the industry now, I started to see well, like really not just country, but a lot of other industries. I do see a lot of independent artists that are actually very popular. They don't need a label to make their name or need to be in a rush to get signed because like a lot of independent artists they have certain ways of promoting their music, whereas through YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere where you could find music they are doing a great job at that, and I feel like if, like where you are right now, yeah, it's definitely a huge advantage for you as an artist. I'm not trying to sound like an agent or like a like a critic, but yeah, I just no, like I say like I appreciate the hustle. That's all.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, well, yeah, Corinne, like yeah, it's pretty good. We went by pretty quick, and yeah, it's definitely like I like to say, it's been a thin slice of heaven. So
I love that.
yeah, but But anyway, guys, this has been Kären McCormick. Definitely make sure to go check out her new single Retro. You could find it on Spotify, as well as Apple Music, and also on her YouTube channel, which is Kären McCormick 17, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Yeah. So guys, make sure you go check out her new song. Make sure to follow her on Instagram. It's at Kären L McCormick. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, awesome. But guys, I've been Philip. Thank you again for tuning into the Real Dope Bros podcast, and catch you guys on the next one. And as always, make sure to keep it real.